So today, I'm giving you 10 rare questions. Not pickup lines. Not tricks. Not games. These are psychological switches, triggers that stir memory, emotion, and tension. They only work if you've done the inner work. Only if you have the stoic presence to sit in silence after you ask. Because when you dare to ask a woman something she's never voiced out loud, she won't forget you, even if she tries. Let's begin. Question 1. What kind of man is hard for you to forget, even if he was wrong for you? Let me tell you a secret most men never realize. The men women remember the longest aren't always the best men. They're not the safest. Not the kindest. They're the ones who left a mark. Sometimes that mark came with a little chaos. Sometimes it burned. But it was unforgettable. Now when you ask a woman this question, and I mean really ask it, calmly, without judgment, you're doing something powerful. You're inviting her to expose the emotional fingerprint of a man who bypassed her logic and hit her at a primal level. And you? You're not just being curious. You're positioning yourself, subtly, as someone who can access the same depth. Let's break it down. When she starts answering this question, notice what happens. Her tone may shift. Her words might slow. Her body may soften. She's not in her head anymore. She's in her body. Why? Because you've pulled her out of her surface-level self. This isn't small talk anymore. You've changed the emotional frequency of the conversation. A stoic man doesn't need to control a woman's feelings. He simply creates the conditions where she feels safe enough to feel them fully in his presence. You're not trying to impress her. You're handing her a mirror. And women are magnetically drawn to the man who reflects back the parts of herself she can't see clearly, or has hidden. This is power without performance. Stillness that speaks louder than words. Now here's the critical part. When she answers, she'll be watching you. Watching if you flinch. Watching if you judge. Watching if you relate too soon just to share your own story. But if you simply receive her answer, with calm presence, without needing to fix it, without jumping in, you become different. You become dangerous in the best way. You become the kind of man she wants to tell more to, because you didn't make her truth about you. That's how attraction begins. Not through effort, but through emotional gravity. This question taps into her nostalgia bias. Her brain automatically pulls up emotionally significant memories. But you're not digging in the past just to stir pain. You're showing her that you can hold emotional weight, hers, yours, and everything in between, without running. Because what does every woman crave, but rarely say? A man who can handle her storm, without becoming one himself. If you're that kind of man, the one who speaks with presence, not performance, drop a comment. I speak with impact. Because when you speak from groundedness, not neediness. You don't need to chase her. She'll replay your words in her head long after you've gone silent. And if you thought that question shook her up, just wait until we ask her what's the most dangerous thing someone ever awakened in her. Let's keep going. Question 2. What's the most dangerous thing someone ever awakened in you? Every woman, no matter how composed, professional, or poised, carries something deep inside that few have seen. It's not always darkness. Sometimes, it's a sleeping fire. Sometimes it's a softness so raw, it scares her more than rage ever could. When you ask this question, you're not looking for gossip. You're reaching for the part of her story that changed her. The chapter she rarely revisits, because it didn't just shape her, it exposed her. You're asking her to recall the person, the moment, the experience, that pulled something out of her she didn't even know was there. That's not a casual question. That's a mirror with no filters. And most men? They don't ask it. Because most men can't handle the answer. But a stoic man, a grounded, present man, isn't afraid of what she's hiding. He's not looking to tame her. He's looking to see her, fully. Here's what happens when you ask this. She pauses. She searches. She flashes back. And if she trusts you enough, she begins to describe a version of herself that may even shock her. Maybe someone awakened her jealousy, the kind that had her stalking his socials at 2 a.m. Maybe someone triggered her deepest maternal instincts, the urge to fix, heal, or save. Maybe someone unlocked her submission, not weakness, but the rare ability to fully let go. Whatever it is, it was dangerous. Not because it harmed her, but because it changed the way she saw herself. And here's the gold, when she tells you what was awakened, she's revealing her emotional edge. Her threshold. Her shadow. Most people run from the parts of themselves that scare them. But when a woman sees that you don't flinch when she shares hers, you become unforgettable. Not because you rescued her, but because you didn't recoil. You didn't diminish. You held space. That's what most women are starving for. The man who can say, I see you. And I'm still here. This question works because it engages deep memory, emotional contrast, and the archetype of the inner wild, the part of her that's not tame, polite, or filtered for public consumption. And most importantly, when she reveals that side of herself to you and you don't lose your center, she subconsciously tags you as safe. Not soft. Not weak. Safe. The grounded masculine. This is the kind of question that leaves her sitting in silence long after the conversation ends. Wondering why she opened up so quickly. Replaying what she said. How she said it. And how you made her feel safe doing it. If you've ever had a woman say, I don't know why I'm telling you this, that's your signal you're holding. Real masculine presence. You're not trying to lead the interaction. You're letting the moment breathe. And trust me, when she feels seen in a way she's never experienced, she won't just remember you. She'll crave that feeling again. Let's move forward. Because the next question? It hits even deeper. Question 3. What do you wish more men understood about women, but you're too tired to explain? Every woman, no matter how strong or stoic, carries emotional labor. And emotional labor is exhausting. She's been misread, misunderstood, and mischaracterized too many times to count. She's learned to smile through it. To laugh things off. To bury her annoyance. To move on. But when a man, a real man, calmly looks her in the eye and asks this question, you're giving her something rare, a moment to stop performing. You're not asking for her pain. You're offering her a pause. A breath. A chance to drop the armor and just be seen. This question doesn't just open her up. It tells her who you are. It tells her you're listening, not waiting to speak. It tells her you're not fragile, that you can handle what she's carried for years. And when she answers, you'll see it, the moment the tension leaves her shoulders. The subtle relief. The unspoken thank you. Because most men don't want the truth. They want comfort. But the stoic man doesn't need comfort. He's rooted in reality. And that's why she trusts you with hers. This question stirs something ancestral, the feminine longing to be deeply understood without having to shout. Without having to explain for the 100th time. When you ask this, don't rush. Let her speak. Let the silence stretch. Because in that silence, you're telling her, I'm not going anywhere. And that, my friend, is unforgettable. Question 4. When do you feel most feminine, and do you trust that part of yourself? We live in a world that constantly tells women to be more productive. More logical. More independent. And while all of those have their place, it's come at a cost. Many women have forgotten, or fear, their own femininity. They're strong. They're sharp. They're survivors. But underneath it all, many are silently asking, is it safe to soften here? When you ask this question, you're not probing. You're inviting. You're inviting her to explore something sacred, her relationship with her own feminine essence. This isn't about roles. It's about energy. About presence. About safety. Some women may say they feel most feminine when they're dancing. when they're in nature, when they're being held, when they're surrendering control. And others? They'll hesitate. Because that part of them has been shamed, buried, or weaponized. So when you ask, and I mean ask with stillness, you offer her a moment of reconnection. And when she sees that you honor her femininity, not as a tool, not as a tactic, but as something sacred, you activate a polarity most men will never touch. You become the grounded, masculine. The presence that allows her to relax. To exhale. To remember who she is beyond survival. That is magnetic. And the next question? It takes this even deeper. Question 5. What's something about love you had to unlearn, the hard way? Every woman has loved the wrong person. Every woman has stayed too long. Settled too quickly. Ignored too many signs. But every lesson in love leaves a scar. And that scar holds wisdom. When you ask this question, you're not picking at her wounds. You're asking about her healing. You're not trying to dig up pain. You're giving her space to reflect, and to be seen not for her mistakes, but for the strength it took to move through them. Question 7. What kind of man makes you feel safe, not just physically, but emotionally? This question reaches into the heart of every woman's lived experience. Because for most of her life, the word safe hasn't just meant protection from strangers. It's meant protection from being misunderstood, minimized, emotionally neglected, or betrayed by the very men who claim to care for her. So when you ask her this question, you're not fishing for a compliment. You're giving her permission to define her emotional sanctuary, to describe the kind of man who doesn't just hold her body, but holds her entire nervous system. And trust me, when a woman starts describing what makes her feel emotionally safe, she reveals her entire relationship blueprint. She might say, a man who listens without interrupting. Or, the kind of man who doesn't weaponize my emotions against me later. Or maybe, someone who notices when I'm shutting down and doesn't just walk away. These are not small things. These are the reasons she's stayed in relationships too long, and the reasons she's walked away from men she still loved. You see, when a woman doesn't feel emotionally safe, she doesn't feel free to be herself. She walks on eggshells. She performs. She self-abandons. But when she does feel safe, she opens. She softens. She reveals. And here's what makes a Stoic man so rare. He doesn't just understand why she needs safety, he's spent years becoming the kind of man who radiates it. A Stoic man isn't reactive. He doesn't punish her for having emotions. He doesn't collapse when she's in a storm. He remains present, calm, still, the eye inside the hurricane. He's not stoic because he suppresses emotion. He's stoic because he can contain it. So when you ask this question, you're not just gathering information. You're extending an invitation for her to lean into a world where her nervous system doesn't have to be on high alert. And make no mistake. When a woman finds a man who makes her feel safe, without her needing to explain why, she will never forget him. Because safety isn't just about what you do. It's about who you are even when she's falling apart. So listen carefully when she answers. Her response won't just teach you how to lead a woman. It will teach you how to be the kind of man who rewires what she thought love could feel like. And if she says, I don't know, I've never felt that, then you become the first man to help her define it. Not with promises. With presence. Question 8. What truth about yourself took you the longest to admit? This question reaches far beyond surface-level conversation. Because every woman carries silent truths, things she's quietly known but took years to say out loud. And these truths don't arrive like lightning. They unfold slowly, after heartbreak, after failure, after months or years of inner resistance. So when you ask this question, what you're really doing is inviting her to step into vulnerability, not in a dramatic way, but in a reflective, empowered way. She might say something like, that I was always trying to fix people so they'd never leave me. That I confuse being needed with being loved. That I don't actually know what I want, I just know how to make others happy. These aren't confessions. They're transformations. They represent emotional battles she's quietly fought, in silence, in solitude, in the middle of nights where no one was watching. And when a woman shares these hard-won truths with you, she's not trying to impress you. She's revealing the path she walked to become who she is now. But here's the secret. When a woman feels emotionally safe, when she senses that you're not judging or trying to fix her, she'll voluntarily pull back the curtain on who she used to be, who she's becoming, and how she got there. That's rare. Because most men only see the polished version. The curated smile. The Instagram-ready woman. But you? You asked the one question that sliced through the mask. You reached for something real. And if you listen deeply, her answer will leave you with a blueprint, not just of her pain, but of her power. Because the truth she couldn't admit for years? It's the very truth that now defines her strength. And the man who honors that truth, not with flattery, but with understanding, becomes unforgettable in her story. He becomes the witness to her becoming.